Greetings and welcome to another River Radio Sports Central podcast alongside Matt Varney from 103.5 ESPN. I am Darren Kinnard, and we are to the final week of the regular season for girls track. We've seen a lot of conference meets going on this week. Postseason starts next Wednesday. Baseball, softball, soccer getting down to the end of the regular season, seeing conference titles. It is that time of year.
Yeah, as we always say, spring just seems to just blow right by. You get to enjoy the fall, you get to enjoy the winter sports, but spring, it's off to the races, and sometimes 6 weeks in, that's all it takes to get to the postseason.
Well, and again, so it was so much being weather dependent, and then we've had great weather for the most part. This week we've had, a couple days of rain, but again, it all, traditionally evens out. So it feels like we've had a lot of games, and now we're getting to the nitty gritty. This week, the softball seedings and pairings came out. Next week, the baseball seedings and pairings will come out. And again, that just kind of highlights the format change this year. All of softball 1 through 4 will be played the same week, and then baseball will do the same a week later instead of the 1A, 2A in both, and then the 3A, 4A in both.
Which I'm not going to complain about. It keeps things a little bit more organized and easier to follow, so I'm all for it. And just ready to go.
And when you look at again the seedings in that, one of the things that's been discussed and that they kind of are doing a trial run with boys volleyball is that using the Max Preps formula to come up with the seeding. And I know that there have been some people that have kind of looked at the softball and said, okay, if we did that, what would the seeding be? And for the most part, it was pretty similar. But I think the one refrain that I keep getting, that keeps popping up is that a formula doesn't take into account maybe somebody that had injury problems or maybe somebody that's playing really well now that wasn't earlier. And I think Johnston City softball is a great example of, they had some injuries. I mean, Lily Arms was out for a little bit. They thought maybe she was going to be out for the season, but she's come back and they're playing really well.
Yeah.
And they ended up as the 6th seed in that in the subsectional, when you could make an argument that the way they're playing right now, they could be the 3.
Yeah, but I mean, we see this in every sport that gets seeded. Generally there's at least one team that suffers an injury that is an extended amount of time that it affects their seeding one way or another. Whether you're using a formula or not, it seems that some voters will go and look at it and say, well, yes, I know that they're good. Yes, I know that they had this circumstance happen. But at the same time, looking at their quality of work, their record, this is what they are, and so I'm going to vote for them this way. And there's politicking that goes along as well.
No.
And that makes it easier, obviously, to say, yeah, this good team I'm going to place further down. But at the same time, I don't think you're going to see too much different of a change with a formula. You might see some of those teams get pushed a little bit further down, unfortunately, whereas some voters are going to look at that and say, well, yeah, they would have been better with this person, and now that person's back, I have to probably give them a little bit more grace in my ranking for them. But nonetheless, one way or another, it's going to kind of come out the same way. And as coaches will tell you, it doesn't matter about all that stuff on the outside. It's who you have in front of you, basically.
Well, and I think what's interesting is that, there are those that feel, and I'm probably in this camp, that you could eliminate a lot of the coaching shenanigans with if you just have to sit in the same room across the table from somebody, as opposed to,
I agree.
We're just going to punch in these on the ballot on the computer. And so, but the interesting thing for me with the Max Preps as a guy that is going through the scoreboards every night, I mean, I know that the schools have been encouraged to report their scores every night, but that's not happening. And I don't know how you can get an accurate evaluation or have an accurate seating if you don't have all the results.
You can't if that's the way that you're going to do it. And I mean, I guess that there's got to be a penalty or something if there's a score that's left undone for both teams. And I mean, there should be motivation for both teams, obviously, to get it in, at least the winning team, to report it. But if there's something that's left blank, then that's going to be a penalty against both teams. I can't imagine that there wouldn't be. You can't just sit there and say, okay, well, that game just didn't happen. And there's got to be a way to report if something got postponed or canceled.
Right.
But at the same time, if a game happened and you didn't do anything, there's got to be some sort of penalty in the formula of that. And it's because if it doesn't get reported and you have this whole formula, then there's got to be like a -2 or something to both
Right.
teams. Because otherwise, yeah, that's just going to remain the same, and you're not going to have accurate reporting, and a formula that is supposed to work won't be working to the best of its ability.
Well, and as a guy that's done this for many years, there were certain people when I was over at Channel 3 that, and this was back in the day when you would call in the scores.
Yeah.
There were some that I knew when I heard their voice that they won.
Yeah.
They didn't call in when they lost.
Yeah.
But when they won, they made sure to get that score in. But when you think about this reporting stuff, if I won, I definitely want that on my resume.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that gets in. And so, I mean, traditionally the home team has been the one that reports the score in that way.
Yeah.
But I mean, why not both? I mean, it's not rocket science. It's not something, again, this isn't like the old days where these coaches and that were having to call in box scores to the newspaper.
Yeah.
And you think about what a box score is like over, this was pre-game changer, pre-email, all that kind of stuff. They're calling in box scores. Well, now, that's what's so aggravating at times is like it is easier now than ever before to report scores, and yet not everybody does it.
Well, and what I will also say after getting done, saying what I had to say about making sure you get your scores in, to the defense of all the assistants and the ADs and everybody putting scores in, I also, during basketball season especially, try to go out there and put the scores in football and basketball season, because I'm keeping records for those two coaches of those two sports, just to have the full record. So I'll go through every day just as you do, and I'll put it in if I see that it hasn't been put into Max Preps. And last week I got something. Thanks for the score. That was from February. So, we're relying on Max Preps also to put something in that it may take a while for it to get put in one way or another. I don't know how everything goes in on the back end and why sometimes I'm getting something months after I've put it in. But when you get down to it, if you're going to use Max Preps, you got to make sure that then that formula is getting put in, or getting those wins and losses put in ASAP, and that comes down to the website just as much as the person that's submitting it.
Well, and it even goes for when schools host regionals, they are to report it to the IHSA score zone or sectionals, anything postseason, and there are those cases, and inevitably it always seems like it's a game that I need that they're not there, and it's like that's part of the gig. If you're going to be a host, you've got to report the score, and eventually, it gets in there the next day because they have to update the pairings, but that doesn't help me that particular night. Not. And so, again, there's going to be a learning curve. It's interesting to me that basketball was discussing this before seeing how volleyball went, because volleyball's the test case, boys volleyball, and we're not necessarily going to hear a lot of feedback because we don't have any boys volleyball around here. Closest is over the Metro East, so it's going to be interesting to see how all that plays out, but certainly you can see some potential pitfalls.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I mean, we'll have our eyes glued to the Post-Dispatch and all of them and seeing how they feel it goes, and even throughout the postseason, because you get to a sectional or something, and because of how things were seeded, things will be affected on who the matchups are, and so we'll have to keep our eyes on that to know just how good it works. And if you're someone that's going to be going to a town hall meeting next November or advocating for it, you should be paying attention to how that's going on, because if you're just going in blind saying this sounds like a great idea, but you didn't see how boys volleyball went, if it was viewed as mostly a success or not, and you didn't maybe look at what maybe some people were saying, well, it would have been better if this happened, or this is something that was caused by. If you just go in saying, well, everybody said it was good, and you didn't look into what all the bad that was going on with it, because there's going to inevitably be good and bad with it. Just if you're going to town hall, if you're gonna advocate for it and put the proposal forth, at least make sure that you know what the good and the bad are, so you're not surprised by it then when it comes time when it eventually gets, assuming that it gets pushed into the other sports.
Gotcha. And before we leave the softball discussion, big weekend in this area as Chatham-Glenwood, the defending 3A state champions and the number one team in 3A right now, coming down to our area here. They're going to play Marion on Friday, who is state ranked in 3A, and then they're going to play a doubleheader at Carterville Saturday. So it's number one 2A hosting number one 3A, and those teams, this is not the first year that they've played, and they have had some classics through the years, and so not only do you have high-level high school softball, in addition to, SIU's hosting the Missouri Valley Conference softball tournament. So softball fans have got a lot going on this weekend.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I've said for several years now that softball's kind of the hidden gem for Southern Illinois, for sports fans. I know people do know about it, but I think there's not enough people that really realize how great it is for SIU to be hosting another softball tournament so soon after they just got done a few years ago hosting it, and their team looks fantastic. And then you've got teams like Carterville and Marion hosting a top team like Chatham-Glenwood. It's going to be you could just, pick what ice cream you want to go and get. You get a little bit of sample A, sample B, some pistachios, some chocolate. Then we're going to go over to Carbondale, get a little bit of something. Then we'll come back on over to Carter. It's going to be a great weekend if you're a softball fan.
And the Midland Trail, we're recording on Thursday. The Midland Trail still doing the conference tournaments in baseball and softball. Both of those championships are this afternoon, and I believe it's Woodlawn and Waltonville, Cesar in both. And the softball is at Waltonville, the baseball is at Weber, and so they will crown their champs this evening. And then Saturday, you're seeing a lot of of softball, baseball. It's having these little 3-4 team round robins. Benton's having an 8-team softball with some pretty good talent in there. So again, a lot going on as we head down to this home stretch.
Yeah, well, I mean, and we talked about it just with spring. We mentioned it at the top of the show. Just it's a crazy time this time of year, and then it's again with all the weather that goes on in spring. You try to get in as much as you can. So, 8-team round robin at Benton sounds crazy, but at the same time, they look at it and they say, "This is your opportunity. If you missed anything, this is your opportunity to really kind of rev up for the postseason because it'll be here before you know it."
And we've talked about it frequently. Scheduling matters.
It does.
And the nice thing is that, as you mentioned, with softball being so strong down here, you're going to run into good teams.
You are.
And Crab Orchard is also hosting a big event, and I believe Tolono Unity's coming down for that.
That's awesome.
And so again, just a lot of good activity, and again, baseball's the same way. As you're not going to see 3 baseball games in a day, but potentially softball could end up playing that direction as well. A couple other tidbits. We've had some local players commit to colleges and stuff, and one that just kind of crossed us within the last 24 hours. Meridian standout AJ Flanoy Jr., who helped lead the Bobcats to the state championship game and then the super sectional. He's committed to go to Moberly.
That's good.
And also, why did I just draw a blank there? Jared Staple Jr.
Yes,
also going to Moberly, and I'm like, I'm like, come on, Matty, pick up on my blank feed there. But two of our local guys, two with Meridian ties. Obviously, Jared's dad was a standout at Meridian, and two guys going to Moberly.
Yeah, and they both seem to be a good fit there. I haven't seen too much Moberly men's basketball, but from what I know about them and I've seen, they're going to be good fits. It's up to them now, though, to get ready for the next level. It's going to be quicker. They both played in quick offenses, obviously, but it's up to them to really get prepared for that next level. They'll be good, whether they're starting or coming off the bench. They'll be good fits for the Greyhounds, and just it's great to see local kids going ahead and get an opportunity at the next level, get an education.
And the one thing, whether it's in Moberly, is just kind of outside of our out of our coverage area, and the GRAC has a reputation. The one thing that the high school kids are going to have to, is it's a lot more physical game, and
it is.
So you're going to have to get some time in the weight room, and obviously AJ's a physical specimen, but he's going to be facing a much more physical game than he's accustomed to, at least at the high school level.
And specifically with Moberly, as they're not in the GRAC, as you mentioned, they're not in Region 24, but I would say that they play a much more physical brand than even some of the teams in the GRAC and in Region 24. It's going to be one of those things that you've got to go ahead and really muscle up and get ready to be pounded, because it's that type basketball that they play in Region 16 where Moberly plays. And then I know we're going to get to him, but Kemion Hale going to Logan, he's thick body, so he's good to go on that, but he's going to have to get a little bit more up to speed. I think he's going to have to gain a little bit of speed in his body.
Yeah, and that's again a nice fit. A good get for Logan to have the local guy stay there, and there's some other local talent that he's gonna mix with when you think about Kyrese Lukens. And you got several other locals in there as well.
Yeah, Cade Brooks was on the team this past year.
Teammate.
Former teammate, and so it's going to be one of those things that it's going to fit like a puzzle piece for him. I think he's going to feel very comfortable at home. Obviously, they've been talking to him for a good amount of time, and so he knows the coaches. And then to walk in and be like, oh, I know a couple of these guys, and oh, there's a guy that I used to just hang out with all the time. It'll be a good fit for him. It'll be an easy transition. It now just comes down to the work, basically.
Always does.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to do it for this River Radio Sports Central podcast. For Matty V, I'm Darren Kinnard. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you again soon.